Hey everybody, this is Joe. We're talking about Marvel Multiverse and we are doing another character build. Here we go. Recently a player and I were discussing how ridiculous speeds can get in this game. They really can become astronomical in their numbers. And of course that got me thinking, well, how fast can you get? There are different movement types in this game, and they each have their own movement speed, which is related, of course, to your run speed. And so it strikes me that if we were to increase our run speed, we would increase other types of speeds, especially flight for today's build. And by doing so, we could build a really fast character. But the question becomes, how fast is fast? Like, how fast can I really make a character in this game? That's what we're going to try to find out today. I really don't need much more preamble than that. We're building a speedster and we are building them in order to have the fastest out of combat movement possible, which will also create the fastest in combat speed possible simultaneously. What you do with this amount of speed, well, that's entirely up to you. I'm not that great at naming my characters, as you know, so if you have a name for this character, put it down into the comments below, but I'll just be calling today's character C. Let's go ahead and start with our occupation, and here I think it fits character-wise. There's some interesting story, but also we can get some mechanical advantage by taking the military occupation. There are a lot of character reasons why we might want military as our occupation, but it also helps with a lot of mechanical advantage. Specifically, when you say that you are a member of the military as your occupation, then you have served or are serving in some branch of the military. You are going to be able to reliably call out to other soldiers for help and potentially get information from certain branches of the military that you are connected to. Importantly, we get 3 traits. We get battle ready, connections for the military, and situational awareness. This makes military potentially the single best occupation, mechanically speaking, in the game, because these are 3 of the best traits that you can possibly have. Battle ready, as you know, gives you 30 additional points of focus right off the bat, and who doesn't love that? Connections, of course, is one of my favorite traits in the game, and in this case you have connections to the military, and that means that you have a reliable source of information gathering that is reliable and interesting to world building. It's an incredibly useful trait, connections generally, and I think connections to the military might be one of the best connections that you can have. And lastly, situational awareness gives us an edge on all initiative checks. We get all of this right away at rank 1, which is incredible. Now, if we are building a speedster and we look at our origin, you could go with anything, but I think just for thematic purposes, I think we have to go Mythic Olympian here. Mythic Olympian means that we are a member of the Olympian people, we are related to or maybe are a god of some kind, and we do get some traits. We get god heritage and enhanced physique. Enhanced physique is cool. It says that we are treated as 1 size larger than we are for the purposes of picking up, carrying, and throwing things. Interestingly, this is going to be kind of cool for our character, but more on that later. God heritage might be the single most difficult to use trait in the game. And the reason is that it's very ambiguous. You are the god of something, and that means you have an edge on any check that has to do with the thing you are the god of. Well, we're the god of speed, maybe, and I don't know how your narrator will interpret that as part of gameplay. So we are going to ignore that portion of the character build because I don't know when and how this is going to provide a benefit to you, but it is there. We actually, before we do anything else, need to talk about our trait, because our trait is actually really important here at rank 1. We are taking big. So big just means that we are big in size, and this has a couple very specific consequences. The first, of course, is that we are larger than a lot of objects for the purposes of picking up, carrying, and throwing things, but remember that we have enhanced physique, so we're treated as 1 size larger still. So we're going to be able to pick up, carry, move, and throw stuff really effectively. Not so great, we have a -1 penalty to our melee and agility defense scores, which that's going to be important for us to remember, but we get, and this is really crucial for us, a bonus to our run speed. Every size you are larger than average, you get an additional square or 5 feet of movement. And this is a way we can pick that up right away at rank 1. We're not going to increase our speed on this character till rank 2, but we're already faster than average. Now, the question becomes, if I want to build the fastest character possible, shouldn't I go into the resize power set, grow to gargantuan size, and increase my movement speed substantially? That technically would work, but that's not the concept for the character. So I recognize that that would actually be a way of getting even faster, but it totally changes the nature of the character, so I am not going down that path, just so that you know. Interestingly, our reach also increases by another square or 5 feet. We are not utilizing that as part of this build. Let's go ahead and do point buy at rank 1. I don't have a lot of reason why I need to do any negative point buy on this character, so I'm not even going down that road this time. I made a video about negative point buy. It can be helpful depending on your character concept, something you might want to check out. But for us, we are going to put 3 points into agility, 1 into resilience, and 1 into vigilance. And this is going to give us defenses with powers of 13 for melee and agility. Technically, this is 12 because we are big in size, just to note. 11 for resilience and vigilance, and 10 for ego and logic. So we're not going into the super speed power set at rank 1. And the reason is there's nothing that is rank 1 allowed in the super speed power set. And that's fine. And I know that, yes, I could go into it and I could do surprising power, pick up an extra trait to be able to pick up the power, but instead, I'm just going to get the offensive capacities of the character online. We're not going to be ranking this character for damage at all, but they need to be able to do it. So we're going to go into the ranged weapons power set. The reason is pretty simple. When you want additional speed, what you really want is 5 points or more in your agility. And the reason you want that is if you have 5 points in agility, you pick up an extra square of movement speed. Right now we have 6 squares or 30 feet of movement. Next rank, we're going to pick up an additional square or 5 feet of movement just because we'll have 5 points in agility. And so we're going to be pumping our agility score. Well, ranged weapons are the weapon type and the power set that attacks using agility, and there are some other ones as well, of course. So we're gonna just stick with that and really go hardcore into our agility score. So that's gonna be great. The first thing we're gonna pick up, and you saw this coming, is evasion. This allows us to use our agility defense for melee attacks when they come in, always useful. Next, we're going to take Sturdy 1 for a 1 damage reduction. We're gonna love that. It's gonna be really helpful for us, and everybody wants damage reduction, and I can afford to take it right now. Next, we're going to take Snap Shooting. Now, Snap Shooting is a basic power in the ranged weapons power set. It's a prerequisite for lots of stuff. This is an action to use. It has no focus cost, so that's great. We can now split our attack against 2 different targets or twice against the same target, and they take half damage on a regular success, and they take full damage on a fantastic success. Also on a fantastic success, they have the bleeding condition, which is always nice. Next, we are going to take Weapons Blazing. Weapons Blazing is what we're actually going to use because it has no focus cost, so we can use it instead of Snap Shooting with no downside, and it's almost the same. We can split our attack against 2 different targets or twice against 1, and each time they would take half damage, or on a fantastic success, they take full damage and are bleeding, but then there's an additional rider. If we have a fantastic success, we then get to make a bonus attack using the exact same power. So of course the play here is going to be to try to increase the odds of a fantastic success with Weapons Blazing, because it allows us potentially to make additional attacks, which is wonderful. So we're going to be ranking this character for speed, and there's really not a lot to talk about. Right now we're only marginally faster than average. We can move 6 squares or 30 feet per round. This is going to get a lot faster very soon. Let's do point buy for rank 2. We're going to bring agility to a 5, resilience to a 2, and we're going to bring logic to a 1. This is going to give us defenses of 15 for melee and agility, a 12 for resilience, 11 for vigilance, 10 for ego, and an 11 for logic. We are now going to be going into the super speed power set, and this is going to, of course, be the thing that informs everything we're doing. By the way, fun thing for you here. I am intentionally not taking lightning actions on this character. If you built it for a game you're playing in, you probably should. I'm not doing it because we're not ranking this for damage, and I don't want to just take that power on everything. But we would be within our rights to do so because we are going heavy into the super speed power set. Anyway, with all that said, we are taking Speed Run 1 right now. Speed Run 1 is a permanent alteration to your character. There's no focus, there's no action. It is a permanent alteration, and it just says that our run speed is multiplied by our rank to get, and here I'm quoting because this is important, we get our new run speed. That language is important. We multiply rank times original run speed in order to get our new run speed. That language is unique among movement types and movement powers because what it does is replace our run speed with a new run speed. And so every other movement type that references our run speed to calculate your flight speed or anything else references this new run speed. Very critical for us. The other factor inside of Speed Run 1 is outside of combat, we can move 3 times faster than our in-combat speed. But we don't really care about the second portion of Speed Run 1 because we are going to take Speed Run 2 right now. Speed Run 2 tells us that we take our run speed, which has been replaced by the way, and multiply it by 50, and this gives us our out of combat run speed. Next, we're going to take Flight 1. Flight 1 just says we can fly. Our flight speed is our rank times our run speed. So basically, to get your flight speed at this rank, you take your normal or your regularly calculated run speed, multiply it times your rank, and then multiply it times your rank again, because this references the replaced run speed. Really cool. And lastly, we are going to take Sturdy 2, which is going to give us a 2 damage reduction right now, and we love that. Okay, something you might have noticed. Speed Run 2 requires a rank of 3 in order for us to take it, so our trait at this rank has to be Surprising Power, which allows us to bypass the rank requirements of a power. This is in the basic power set, so we're already in the power set, we just need to use Surprising Power to pick it up right now. So how fast are we? Well, an average sized character has 25 feet of movement. We're big, so we have 30, and we have hit 5 points of agility, which means we have 35 feet or 7 spaces of movement speed. We then are rank 2, so that gets doubled, and outside of combat, it gets multiplied by 50. So our out of combat run speed is 700 feet per second. Let's do point buy for rank 3. We're going to bring agility to a 6, resilience to a 3, vigilance to a 2, ego to a 1, logic to a 2. This is going to give us defenses of 16 for melee and agility, 13 for resilience, a 12 for vigilance and logic, and an 11 for ego. We are not going into a new power set at rank 3, we just want more powers that are speed based, and the first one is Run on Water. This means exactly what it sounds like. You can run on water as if it was regular ground, and you will not sink unless you stop moving. Next, we're going to take Flight 2. This says that outside of combat, our flight speed is 50 times our normal flight speed. Our normal flight speed, of course, is increased over our run speed, and our run speed is increased over an average character's run speed. All of these things are going to add together. Next, we're going to take Iconic Weapon. We are using a firearm or a crossbow or something like that, and we might as well make sure that we get an edge every time that we use it. So take Iconic Weapon, get an edge on all of your attacks. You're going to do reasonable damage, and you're going to hit more often. Next, we're going to take Slow Motion Dodge. This is a reaction power. If an enemy makes an attack against our agility defense, we can use our reaction and they have trouble on the attack. This is very nice. It's also a prerequisite for some pretty cool stuff. Next, we're going to take Slow Motion Shoot Dodge. Now this starts off exactly the same as Weapons Blazing. We split our attack against 2 enemies or twice against the same enemy. Upon regular success, they take half damage. Upon a fantastic success, they take full damage. They are bleeding, and we get to make another bonus attack. But then there's a rider. The rider stipulates that after we use his power, until we are moved, move ourselves, or start our next turn, enemies have trouble on any attack against us. But when we start our next turn, we fall prone. This power costs 10 points of focus. You might use it, you might not, but it is a prerequisite for some stuff we're picking up at the next rank, so we do need to pick it up now. The trait we're going to take is Free Running. This says that you have an edge on any movement check. And this is usually to dodge or avoid something as you're moving very quickly through a space of some kind, and it counts for flying as well as for running, so that's pretty cool. Okay, so how fast are we at rank 3. Well, we're assuming that we are flying now. We can be a little bit faster doing this, and we have no obstacles. So we're going to take a look at how fast we can fly, and let's have some fun. At this rank, our out of combat flight speed is 3,150 feet per second. The circumference of the Earth is 24,902 miles, and so we would actually fly around the circumference of Earth in 11 hours, 35 minutes, and 40 seconds. Let's go ahead and do point buy for rank 4. We're going to bring agility to a 7, resilience to a 4, vigilance to a 3, ego to a 2, logic to a 3. This will give us defenses of 17 for melee and agility, 14 for resilience, 13 for vigilance and logic, and a 12 for ego. The first thing we're going to pick up is sturdy 3. This gives us a 3 damage reduction, and of course we're going to love that. But interestingly, it's going to be less useful right after this rank than it would have been if we'd picked it up earlier. So you'll see what I mean here in a second, but you might actually decide to not pick up any more sturdy powers. Next, we're going to take Dance of Death. This is a pretty fun power, costs 10 points of focus. We make an agility check, not attack, and this is compared against the agility defense of every enemy within 5 spaces and within our line of sight. Pretty fantastic, all right? Upon a success, it does half damage. Upon a fantastic success, it does full damage, and the character is bleeding. So now we're able to hit a large number of enemies, and we can do it reliably from any space that we can physically get to. And with our speed, we can get to anywhere. But we really do want to go into a new power set here, because what if I'm trying to run as fast as possible and I need to get somewhere? Well, I might need to move through walls. So in order to improve the ability for us to just go in a straight line and use our speed to maybe infiltrate, I am going to be picking up the phasing power set. First, we're going to take Phase Self. This allows us to use an action in order to become incorporeal, and nothing can physically affect us, and we can move straight through walls. Next, we're going to take Quick Phase. Quick Phase is a reaction. If we are targeted with an attack, we can become incorporeal using our reaction, and any attack that would physically hit us, that means attacking usually our melee, our agility, and usually our resilience as well, it simply does not hit. The trait we're going to take is Sneaky. Well, we're already really fast and we can move through walls. Let's go ahead and get an edge on any agility-based check that we're going to use in order to sneak around a location. So we're now helping out our infiltration capacity as a speedster. And you better believe we can get out of any place that we need to really fast. That's fun. Okay, how fast are we at this rank? Well, our out of combat flight speed is now 5,600 feet per second. And that means if we were to run straight around the circumference of Earth, we would do so in 6 hours, 31 minutes, and 19 seconds. Let's do point buy at rank 5. We're going to bring agility to an 8, resilience to a 5, vigilance to a 4, ego to a 3, and logic to a 4. This will give us defenses of 18 for melee and agility, a 15 for resilience, 14 for vigilance, 13 for ego, and 14 for logic. First, we're going to take Blur. Blur is an action or a reaction to use, and if we are targeted with an attack, we can use Blur, and all attacks against us have trouble, which is always nice. And this does cost 5 points of focus. It's going to be tough to decide if you want to Blur with your reaction or Quick Phase, but now you have the choice. Next, we are going to take Accuracy 1 through 4. We're taking all 4 of them right now. We have not been really building this character for damage, so we have kind of put accuracy to the side, but let's go ahead and get some damage multiplier on this character. Should be really nice. Also, for all of those movement checks and all of those agility-based checks, we are now getting a +4 bonus. And don't forget, some of our attacking powers specifically say that it is not an attack, but a check that we do. So we're getting a benefit from that, which is cool. The trait we're going to take is Combat Reflexes. We have a number of reaction powers, and I want to be able to have multiple reactions so that I have some choices in what to do. So we might as well pick that up right here. It's always a good thing to have. Okay, so how fast are we now? Well, at this rank, our out of combat flight speed is 8,750 feet per second. And at that rate, we would fly around the circumference of Earth in 4 hours, 10 minutes, and 26 seconds. Let's go ahead and do point buy at rank 6. We're going to bring agility to a 9, resilience to a 6, vigilance to a 5, ego to a 4, and logic to a 5. This will give us defenses of 19 for melee and agility, a 16 for resilience, 15 for vigilance and logic, and a 14 for ego. Let's go ahead and go into a new power set. Let's pick up martial arts just for some quality of life stuff here. And the first thing, of course, is do this all day. Do this all day allows me to use an action in order to regain health and for an expenditure of focus at a 2-for-1 discount, which of course we love for our survivability. Speaking of survivability, we're going to take Sturdy 4, so now we have a 4 damage reduction, always beneficial. Third, we are going to go ahead and take Brace for Impact, which allows us to use a reaction to reduce the health damage from an attack that hits by expending focus on a 1-for-1 basis. And lastly, let's go ahead and take Uncanny 1, so we have a 1 damage reduction for any power that attacks our focus. Something I like to put into a character, but I don't always have the room for it. I have no recommendation for a trait for you at this rank. It's going to be taster's choice. Pick something that seems like fun. All right, what is going to be our top speed? Let's start in combat. In combat, our flight speed is 252 spaces, which is enormous. Out of combat, of course, it's faster. Our out of combat flight speed is 12,600 feet per second. At that rate, we would fly around the circumference of Earth in 2 hours, 53 minutes, and 55 seconds. There is an original version of this character that I built and actually recorded and scrapped. And I did something in that character build that ended up not being meaningful. I decided to try on that character to pick up additional types of movement, right? I went into wall crawling and swing lining. I tried to pick up other types of movement. I went into the jump powers, and all of that was fun, and I got really crazy climbing and jumping speeds. But in the end, I came back to flight. If your character can fly, the jump powers don't mean a whole lot. If your character can fly, wall crawling doesn't mean a whole lot. Swing lining doesn't mean a whole lot. And so the flight powers, having basically no prerequisites except for rank, really negate the mechanical benefit of a lot of other types of movement, particularly if you have the phasing powers. Now, that has nothing to do with flavor. If you want to build a Spider-Man style character that doesn't fly but has all these other movement types, it is fun, it is exciting. I have seen characters in-game and players at the table who love this, and I think that's awesome. But if I'm building a character that's going to explore mobility, in the end, flight is just a better or more universally applicable type of movement. That doesn't mean more fun, but if I have it, I don't need the other power sets, so I didn't go into them. There's an alternative build where you don't go into phasing, by the way, and instead you go into omniversal travel and pick up some time stop abilities. The Quicksilver stat block has this. It assumes that Quicksilver moves so fast that time essentially stops for other characters, and he's able to move incredibly quickly. If I'd done that, I could have expended a bunch of focus and gone around the world even faster. And if you build a speedster, you might want to go that direction. I decided not to, but one day I might actually go back to omniversal travel and really pick that up and play with those concepts. If you want to see me use omniversal travel for damage, I've got a character called Over Again, which is the single most amount of damage I have ever built on a character. You can go check it out. But in the end, we built a character that runs at ridiculous speeds, can get to anywhere that he wants, and can move through buildings to get there, run on water to get there. It's really trivially easy for this character to have mobility for any positioning that you want. And that's kind of fun. I think it's a good utility characteristic of the character and a fun kind of mental problem to solve. How fast can you get in this game? You can get really fast. How fast is too fast where it doesn't mean anything anymore? Well, I guess that depends on your table. But in the end, I think it's a fun kind of build. It's an interesting playstyle, and the character